Hi everybody. So I'm doing this to help me as much as anybody else. This is for the Module 11 Analysis 3 SPSS stuff. And second time I've done this video because the first I was like, am I doing this right? So I just want to anyone can compare and see if I did the same that they did. So this is just to help everybody out, not just for me. Okay. So for this one, we are doing t-tests. So the first one is we want to compare the following groups' performance on 10th grade reading exam and 10th grade math exam. So basically we have two groups and we want to compare their performance on the 10th grade reading exam and then on the 10th grade math exam. Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to go to Analyze and compare means and proportions, and we want to go ahead and pick the independent samples t-test. So our test variable is the 10th grade math and 10th grade reading. And then our grouping variable is going to be female because that was our dummy variable, but we have to define the groups because before when we made that dummy variable, we said that males were 0 and females were 1. If we don't do that, it's not going to give us our output. So we hit OK. Estimate effect sizes. I watched this video in Module 10 about doing this. And so then we hit OK. And it pops up, so female versus male on one test, and then female versus male on the other test. And so basically we want to see if the mean score was significant for these two, if it was not 0, if the difference in the mean. And so it looks like this one, the difference in the mean is not significant, which I think makes sense in the fact that we haven't seen that we haven't seen a difference really between males and females too much in our stuff. Okay, so the next one then is we wanted to look at 8th grade algebra versus 8th grade math and see those two groups, how they did on their reading and how they did in their math. All right, so we go to Analyze, compare means and proportions, and independent samples t-test. And in this case, we're going to pick algebra. And I think if we define the groups, we're fine, because before when we made the dummy variables last 2 weeks ago, general math was 0 and algebra was 1. And so we're going to hit continue and hit OK. So that picks up our, so by algebra, the variable, but 0 means general math, and there's 450, and then algebra means 1, and that's 135. So there's our means, and then as we come down here, we've seen these to be different. So the mean difference between these is pretty big, and it is big when we see the difference of the means. And so those are statistically significant. So when you look at the scores based on who was in which class in 8th grade, that did make a difference. Okay, so that was part 1 of part 1. So now we're going to do part 2, which is the paired sample t-test. So the first one we're going to do is just with all the students. And so we're just going to go ahead and do Analyze, compare means and proportions, and we're going to do paired samples t-test. And we want to do it, but what we want to do now is you have one group, but 2 tests. Where before in the independent one, you have 2 groups, 1 test. So now we have 1 group, 2 tests. And so we want to put the post-test first. I saw that in the video because that is supposed to be higher. And then the pre-test second. And don't do anything with pair 1 or pair 2 because we actually have to split our data to get the female one. Although I think if we wanted to compare more than pre, we could do another pair. Anyway, so this is what we want. So we hit OK. And I'm just going to bring this up. So what we see here is you see that for all the students, and so the N is 521. And one thing I noticed is our N was actually 585. But if you look at the data for these exams, the scores, there's some boxes that don't have any data in them. And I actually went to the very original one we downloaded, and there were some that were just blank. I don't know what that means. So when we look at this, we're trying to see, like, is the score pre and post different? And if it is different, is it significant for all the students? And it looks like it is. The mean difference. So the difference in the mean from the pre to the post test is significant on the paired sample t-test. Okay, so there is a difference. All right, so for all the students. So then we want to go back to males versus females. So let me go ahead and make it smaller. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to go to data, and we have to split our file first. And we want to split it by gender. So female. Suppose we could actually split it by gender. If we split it by gender, you can split it by female or gender. If you split it by gender, it's going to be okay because it will pop up male or female. If you split it by female, instead of seeing male, female, you'll see 0 and 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do this by gender. Hit OK. So it's split by gender. And then we'll go into paired samples t-test, and it should already be in there. And I've already split it. So then options just tells you what you want your confidence interval. And if you want to exclude cases by an analysis, and I didn't do any of that for missing values. And then hit OK. I didn't change anything there. Yeah, so here we have female. So the difference between females and males. So I guess what I'd say here is that it seems like both males and females did have a difference between their pre and post. So there really wasn't a difference between males and females when it comes to pre and post because they both did have a difference. Is that how I would look at that? When you look at the correlations. I guess when you look at the t-test, the mean, so the t-test is the paired sample t-test is the difference in the means greater than 0 or 0. And since it's greater than 0 and it's significantly greater than 0, I believe that this one is significant. Okay, so that was males versus females. So now we want to go back and we want to do the data. We want to split it by file, not gender, but by class. So you could put in 8th grade math class enrollment, and that will give you algebra or general math. Or you could split it by your dummy variable of algebra, and that will just give you general math as 0, 0, and algebra is 1. I'm just going to do it by this one. Hit OK. And then go to Analyze and compare means and proportions. Paired sample t-test. 10th grade math pre, post. OK. All right, let's look and see what we got. And so here we have algebra and general math, 400 and 121. All right, and as we go down, we see the mean difference, the standard deviation. And so I think this is significant. We've seen this being significant all the way through, that algebra and general math both saw increases, but it's interesting that algebra shows a bigger increase, I guess, in the difference in their means between the pre and post. I have to read more about what it all means. I haven't gotten there yet. I kind of did this analysis ahead of time. All right, so let's see if we did everything. All right, so all students, we have the t-test for that. Well, let's go all the way back to the beginning. So we have the one for the independent one for males versus females. Okay, 0, 0 is male and 1 is female. And then we have our one for the independent one for 8th grade math enrollment or not. So if they're in algebra or 1 or general math 0. And then we have our paired sample ones for all the students who have data. Then for males versus females, how did they do? And then lastly, versus what they were on. So that's how I did this. I'm going to read more of the stuff and see if I did it right or not. But anyway, just for all of us, let me know if I missed something. And thank you guys. Okay.